Imagine this. You wake up at 6 a.m. Your alarm goes off. You hit snooze. Just like the guy sleeping in the apartment next to yours. You both went to the same school. You both started your first job the same year. You both had roughly the same salary. But 10 years later, he's driving a Tesla, owns 3 properties, and just booked a business class flight to Dubai. And you're still here. Same apartment, same routine, same paycheck. What happened? It wasn't luck. It wasn't a rich family. It wasn't some secret investment tip he found on Reddit at 2 a.m. It was psychology. And that's exactly what we're breaking down today. Because the gap between people who build wealth and people who don't isn't really about money. It's about the way their minds work, the way they think, the way they make decisions, the way they see risk, time, failure, and themselves. Stay with me until the end of this video, because I'm going to walk you through the exact psychological patterns that separate millionaires from everyone else, and I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll never look at money the same way again. The first shift. They don't see money as safety. They see it as a tool. Most people grow up thinking about money as a thing you save to feel safe. You work, you earn, you save, you protect. That's the default mindset that's been passed down through generations. And it makes total sense. For most of human history, scarcity was the norm. Keeping what you had was survival. But here's where millionaires think completely differently. They don't hoard money. They deploy it. To a millionaire, money sitting in a bank account doing nothing is almost painful. It's a wasted resource. It's a soldier sitting in the barracks while the war is being fought outside. Every dollar, every euro, every pound, it has a job. It's supposed to go somewhere and come back bigger. This is what financial experts call the investor mindset versus the saver mindset. And the gap between those two is enormous. The saver asks, how do I keep this money safe? The investor asks, where can this money work for me? Now, I'm not saying saving is bad. Emergency funds matter. Financial cushions matter. But the psychological shift happens when you stop seeing money as a destination and start seeing it as a vehicle. You're not trying to accumulate it for the feeling of security. You're using it as fuel to build something bigger. Research from Dr. Thomas Stanley, who spent decades studying millionaires in America for the book The Millionaire Next Door, consistently found that wealthy people live below their means. Not because they're scared to spend, but because they're always looking for the next deployment opportunity. Every dollar not spent frivolously is a dollar available to be invested. That's the first psychological shift. And it sounds simple, but most people never make it. The second shift. They have a completely different relationship with failure. Let me ask you something. Think about the last time something you tried didn't work out. A business idea that flopped. An investment that lost money, a side hustle that went nowhere. What was your immediate emotional reaction? For most people, it's shame, embarrassment, the desire to never talk about it again and quietly move on. For millionaires, it's data. This is one of the most profound psychological differences I've ever studied. Wealthy people, real self-made wealthy people, not people who inherited fortunes, have an almost clinical relationship with failure. They don't enjoy it. They're not masochists, but they genuinely deeply believe that failure is information, and information is valuable. Jeff Bezos has talked publicly about his regret minimization framework. When making big decisions, he imagines himself at 80 years old looking back. He doesn't ask, what if this fails? He asks, will I regret not trying? That reframe alone changes everything about how you approach risk. Elon Musk lost almost his entire fortune not once, but multiple times, and kept going. Not because he's reckless, but because his psychological response to failure isn't devastation, it's recalibration. And this isn't just about famous billionaires. Study any self-made millionaire and you'll find a trail of failures behind them. Failed restaurants, failed apps, failed partnerships. The difference is that they process those failures and use them as stepping stones instead of letting them become identity-level traumas. Psychologists call this growth mindset, a term popularized by Carol Dweck at Stanford. People with a growth mindset believe their abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. People with a fixed mindset believe talent and intelligence are static. You either have it or you don't. And when something fails for someone with a fixed mindset, it confirms their fear. I'm just not good enough. But when something fails for someone with a growth mindset, it triggers a different question. What did I miss? What do I need to learn? That question, what do I need to learn, is worth $1 million, literally. The third shift. They play an entirely different game with time. Here's something that will change how you see wealthy people forever. They are not thinking about this month. They are not thinking about this year. They're thinking about the next decade, sometimes 2 or 3 decades ahead. This is called long-term orientation in behavioral economics, and it is one of the single strongest predictors of financial success ever studied. You've probably heard of the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment. The one where they gave kids a marshmallow and told them if they could wait 15 minutes without eating it, they'd get a second one. The kids who waited went on to have dramatically better life outcomes on average, higher SAT scores, lower rates of addiction, higher income. The ability to delay gratification is a superpower. But millionaires don't just delay gratification. They restructure their entire relationship with time. When Max, let's call him Max, a composite of every self-made wealthy person I've ever studied. When Max buys a stock, he's not thinking about what it'll be worth next Tuesday. He's thinking about what the company will look like in 10 years. When Max starts a business, he's not thinking about when he'll turn a profit this quarter. He's thinking about what market position he can build over the next 5 years. This long-term thinking creates a totally different set of decisions on a daily basis. Max doesn't buy the newest iPhone on release day because he's already thinking about what that $1,200 becomes if invested over 15 years at 10% annual return. Spoiler, it becomes over $5,000. Max doesn't stress about a stock dropping 8% in a week because he knows the stock market has recovered from every single crash in history, every single one, and that volatility in the short term is just noise against the signal of long-term growth. The average person makes financial decisions based on how they feel right now. The millionaire makes financial decisions based on where they want to be in a decade. That's not a financial skill, that's a psychological one. The fourth shift. They are obsessed with asymmetric risk. This one is underrated. Seriously, underrated. Most people think millionaires are big risk takers, that they gamble everything, that they're cowboys who go all in and hope for the best. That's a myth. A complete myth. What millionaires actually do is seek asymmetric risk, and there's a massive difference. Asymmetric risk means the downside is limited, but the upside is enormous. They look for opportunities where, if it works, they win massively. But if it doesn't work, they lose a manageable amount. Think about buying a piece of land in an up-and-coming area of a city. Worst case, the area doesn't develop and you sell for what you paid, maybe slightly less. Best case, in 10 years, the area booms and your land is worth 5 times what you paid. That's asymmetric. Think about starting a digital product, an online course, an ebook, a software tool. Worst case, you spend a few months of evenings building it and it makes almost nothing. Best case, it generates passive income for years. Again, asymmetric. The wealthy don't avoid risk, they engineer it. They deliberately construct situations where the upside far outweighs the downside, and they never ever bet everything on one outcome. Diversification isn't just a financial strategy, it's a psychological one. It removes the catastrophic fear that paralyzes people from taking any risk at all. When Max knows that even if this one investment fails, he still has 4 others performing, he can take the leap. The average person with all their eggs in one basket can't afford to be wrong, so they never try at all. The fifth shift. Their identity is built around creation, not consumption. This one is deep, and it's one most people completely miss. We live in a world designed to turn us into consumers. Every app, every advertisement, every social media algorithm is optimized to make you spend time, attention, and money. Consume this product, watch this show, buy this outfit, upgrade this gadget, and there's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying things. Life is meant to be lived, but millionaires have built their psychological identity around creation, not consumption. What does that mean practically? It means when they have free time, their instinct is to build something, write something, create something, solve a problem, develop a skill, not to passively consume entertainment. It means when they see a problem in the market, they think, how can I build a solution to this? Not, who do I complain to about this? It means their self-worth is tied to what they produce, what they contribute, what they build, not to what brand they wear or what car they drive. This has a wildly powerful compounding effect over time. Every hour, the average person spends scrolling. The builder is developing a skill, writing content, coding a product, or learning about an industry. Over a decade, those hours accumulate into an insurmountable advantage. Psychologists talk about autotelic personalities, people who are internally motivated, who find deep satisfaction in the process of creating and working toward goals rather than just seeking external rewards. Millionaires are almost universally autotelic. They would keep building even if they didn't need the money. Many of them say exactly that. They can't stop working because the work itself is the reward. That's not hustle culture propaganda. That's a genuine psychological trait you can cultivate if you start shifting your identity from consumer to creator. The sixth shift. They understand that their network is their net worth. Jim Rohn said it famously, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And before you roll your eyes at that, hear me out. This isn't just motivational poster wisdom. There is serious, rigorous psychological research behind this idea. Human beings are extraordinarily susceptible to social influence. We unconsciously adopt the beliefs, behaviors, attitudes, and ambitions of the people around us. It's called social contagion, and it works for everything, including financial habits. If you are constantly around people who see wealth as impossible, who complain that the system is rigged, who celebrate mediocrity and mock ambition, you will absorb those beliefs. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. Millionaires, almost without exception, have deliberately curated their environments. They seek out people who are playing a bigger game than they are. They invest in relationships with people who challenge their thinking, who introduce them to new opportunities, who hold them to a higher standard. This doesn't mean abandoning your old friends or being ruthless. It means intentionally expanding your circle toward people who make you better through mentorship, masterminds, industry events, online communities, whatever it takes. The psychology here is powerful. When you spend time with people who have already achieved what you want to achieve, it stops feeling impossible. You see their humanity. You see their flaws. You realize they're not superhuman. They just made different choices over time, consistently. That normalization of success is one of the most powerful mindset shifts you can experience. The seventh shift. They master the inner game. First, everything we've talked about so far, the relationship with failure, the long-term thinking, the asymmetric risk, the creator identity, all of it comes down to this. One thing, millionaires have done the inner work. They understand that the biggest obstacle to their success isn't the market, isn't competition, isn't the government, isn't the economy. It's their own psychology, their own fears, their own limiting beliefs, their own self-sabotage. And so they invest heavily in their mental and emotional development. This is why you'll find that an unusually high proportion of wealthy people read voraciously, work with coaches, practice mindfulness or meditation, journal regularly, and are deeply self-aware. Not because these are luxury habits, but because they understand that everything they want to build externally starts with what they've built internally. There's a concept in psychology called internal locus of control. People with an internal locus of control believe that their actions, choices, and decisions are the primary drivers of their outcomes. People with an external locus of control believe that outside forces, luck, the economy, other people, are the primary drivers of their outcomes. Study after study shows that people with an internal locus of control achieve more, earn more, and report higher life satisfaction. And it's not a fixed trait. It can be developed. It can be trained. Every time you take responsibility for an outcome instead of blaming external circumstances, you're strengthening that muscle. Millionaires are almost universally high on internal locus of control. They don't wait for the right conditions. They don't blame the market for their losses. They look inward, adjust, and act. The eighth shift. They treat learning as the highest leverage investment. Here is a statistic that should wake you up. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest human beings on the planet, spends approximately 80% of his working day reading and thinking. Not in meetings, not on calls, not managing people. Reading and thinking. Bill Gates takes 2 think weeks every year, where he retreats alone with nothing but books, papers, and his thoughts. This is not a coincidence. Millionaires have a deep, almost religious commitment to continuous learning. They understand, at a psychological level, that knowledge and skill are the highest leverage investments available. You can lose money, you can lose assets, you can even lose your business. But you cannot lose what you know. Your skills are yours forever. More importantly, they are fanatically curious. They read across disciplines: psychology, history, biology, business, philosophy. They connect dots that others miss. They see patterns in disparate fields that lead to innovations and opportunities no one else recognized. And here's the critical mindset piece. They don't learn to show off. They don't learn to get credentials. They learn to apply. Every book Max reads, he's asking, how can I use this? Where does this apply to what I'm building? Learning is not academic for them, it's operational. This also connects to something called T-shaped knowledge. The idea that the most effective thinkers have both deep expertise in one area and broad knowledge across many areas. The depth gives them credibility and competitive advantage in their field. The breadth gives them the creative connections and cross-disciplinary insights that produce breakthroughs. If you want to build wealth, become a learning machine. Not a credentials machine, a learning machine. The final lesson, it's all one system. Here's what I want you to take away from everything we've covered today. These aren't 8 separate tricks. They're not a checklist you complete. They are a single, integrated psychological system, and they reinforce each other. When you see money as a tool, you stop hoarding it and start investing it, which teaches you about risk. When you develop a healthy relationship with failure, you take more asymmetric bets, which accelerates your learning. When you think long-term, you stop consuming mindlessly and start creating intentionally, which builds your identity as a producer. When you curate your network, you normalize success, which strengthens your internal locus of control. When you master the inner game, you show up consistently, which compounds every other habit. This is why wealthy people tend to get wealthier. Not because the system is rigged in their favor, though structural advantages exist and matter, but because the psychological compounding of these habits creates an ever-accelerating engine of growth. The beautiful, uncomfortable truth is this: you don't need to be born into the right family. You don't need to have started 10 years ago. You don't need a genius IQ or a perfect plan. You need to start making these psychological shifts one at a time, consistently, imperfectly, right now. Because the person who wakes up one day and realizes they've quietly built something extraordinary while everyone else was waiting for the perfect moment, that person started the same way everyone else did. They just decided to think differently, and so can you. Tell me in the comments what topic you want me to talk about for the next video. See you.